I owe you an apology. I wasn't really familiar with your game, is exactly what you should be saying about the new wild style grenade launcher, because this grenade launcher absolutely cooks and I can't believe that nobody talks about it. Granted, it is totally overkill with a selection of the seasonal artifact mods equipped, but even without it and with a bit of subclass synergy in terms of fragments and aspects, you can still turn it into a room clearing monster, which I think, in my honest opinion, is better than Forbearance. Sacrilege, I hear you cry, but aside from this insane build that I want to show you, I also want to go through the multiple special ammo grenade launchers that we've got with a bit of a comparison, what makes each one unique, and why you might want to consider putting Forbearance to one side. Now obviously the Forbearance is the absolute GOAT, it is the quintessential special ammo grenade launcher that literally everybody in the game uses. More recently, I mean literally everybody, because you can get the free to play version from the Onslaught playlist with the Into the Light update, and there's only one reason that this grenade launcher is so good, to be honest. It is super easy to get and it's even easier to use. It's basically a fire and forget grenade launcher, as you can shoot the wave onto the floor, it'll do its thing, it'll track in whichever direction it wants to, usually towards enemies, and then thanks to chain reaction you're gonna not only kill that first enemy that you hit more often than not, you're also then gonna create a massive explosion which is gonna take out nearby enemies as well. To be fair, in low level content and high level content, this thing absolutely does do bits, but the main problem with this grenade launcher, and maybe a little bit of an upside to be honest, is that it really doesn't have any subclass synergy. Obviously it is an arc waveframe, so you can use it with your arc subclass to help you get amplified to increase your movement speed and your reload speeds and all that good stuff, but apart from that you're not really going to be getting any subclass synergy, you're not chaining any jolting effect or anything like that. You can essentially use it to blind enemies, but with the effectiveness of how chain reaction is, then you're really not using it for that reason. You're really just using it to clear bunches of ads, and it is super effective at that, and I can see that is why obviously it is a mega popular weapon. Now to be honest, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, I don't really like it. If that wasn't obvious, I mean, I've had the crafted one from pretty much day dot when the Witch Queen raid came out, and I just haven't used it. Like, I see everyone going on about, oh, Forbearance this, Forbearance that, but I literally don't use it. I'd rather use something else, and I guess this is where we're going with this video and why this became a thing, in my mind at least. And obviously Destiny's just great for that, isn't it? I mean, you don't have to like the same thing that everyone else likes, and there's tons of viability out there, and this is what led me to putting out this video, I think. So moving on from Forbearance and the tiny violin that I've just been playing, we've got the void version of Forbearance, which is the harsh language grenade launcher. Now this is a void waveframe and it is a world drop. I think you can farm it from certain lost sectors when they're on rotation, but these drop like candy, to be fair, in most activities. And the main reason that this thing is so good, especially if you're looking at some sort of void subclass build synergy, is because you've got destabilizing rounds in that final column. Now destabilizing rounds are going to cause nearby targets to become volatile, which is absolutely going to cause that chain reaction style explosion, but again with some of that void subclass synergy. And to be fair, this thing on its own isn't that good. Like, you really do need to lean into that subclass build synergy to get this one going. To be honest, I think the Hunter is the best setup for pretty much every single grenade launcher that we're going to go through today. Obviously the Falcon's exotic chest armor will absolutely go hand in hand with that grenade launcher, and then if you are leaning into the subclass aspects and fragments to maybe get Devour going so that you get that grenade uptime going, and then on defeating targets with the Echo of Instability equipped, you'll be able to get volatile rounds to your weapons. So not only be able to chain using harsh language with destabilizing rounds, you're going to essentially create that volatile explosion from that first enemy that you defeat, and that's really where this one leans into it. You can then build into that from going Invis, or if you're on Warlocks then you can look at something like Nezarec Sin to get more of your abilities back. There's a ton of things that you can do with it, but it's just not as free as what Forbearance is. But if you like void builds, then you really need to be chasing down a harsh language. Now the next one on my list is the Undercurrent Arc Waveframe Grenade Launcher. Now sadly I don't have this because I'm an absolute scrub and I haven't been farming the Nightfalls this season, but basically this is is the Arc Waveframe grenade launcher, and it is currently the only special ammo grenade launcher that comes with Vault Shot. Now Vault Shot, in my opinion, is a little bit hit and miss, but it does have massive potential to be tons better than Chain Reaction. Now obviously you do need to defeat a target to trigger Vault Shot on the next shot, and if you do manage to get Vault Shot going, then obviously that was basically why the Aikilos SMG was so popular, because once you do get Vault Shot going, it is pretty much impossible to not enjoy the chain lightning effect that it can do. And Jolt can also shut down like overload champions, and then if you do lean into that, because it is a special ammo grenade launcher and you get that blinding effect going with the spark of beacons, you can also then shut down unstoppable champions as well. So there really is quite a lot going for that Undercurrent grenade launcher. At the minute it is tied behind Nightfalls, and I'm not sure as to the rotation. I think it is going to be coming back in the next few weeks, so if you haven't got one, then it may be worth getting one, because obviously the Chain Reaction perk on special ammo weapons, and namely the Forbearance, is going to be getting a nerf with the final shape, so it's absolutely worth hunting down some of these alternative versions of special ammo grenade launchers, just so you can have that little bit more subclass synergy. And you never know, some of these might actually work perfectly with the new prismatic subclass as well with the final shape. Now another one of the more recent ones that we've seen not so much flying under the radar is the Tusk of the Boar Strand Waveframe grenade launcher, which was from the Iron Banner. Now sadly the Iron Banner is no more this season, so we're going to have to wait until it comes back with the final shape or the new episodes, so at the minute it's not really known as to when we're going to be able to get our hands back on this. But there's a few things that are going for the Tusk of the Boar, and why it is probably one of the more popular waveframe grenade launchers. It does have a ton of subclass synergy with Strand. Obviously we've got Slice, which is going to allow you to sever targets on casting your class ability, and that's going to make them basically dish out 40% less damage to you, and it's a really nice perk to use. This one can also come with Chain Reaction, and the synergy on that at the minute is absolutely bonkers, thanks to mainly the seasonal artifact with the Unraveling Orbs mod. But one of the main things that's going for this one at the minute is Deconstruct. Now if you manage to get hold of a Deconstruct one, essentially if you're hitting 3 or more enemies with this waveframe grenade launcher, then it's going to auto reload and you can effectively just shoot it back to back to back to back. It is pretty insane at ad clear, and like I say, combined with that unraveling rounds either from the artifact or from your Strand subclass setup, then Deconstruct on the Tusk of the Boar really is a really good little grenade launcher to get rolling. Now there's also the stasis grenade launcher, which probably nobody cares about or is even bothered about talking about, so we're going to skip that one because it has absolutely zero synergy with anything and is, quite frankly, absolutely pointless. One that isn't absolutely pointless though is the Mountaintop. Now this has also just come back with the Into the Light update, and there's a few reasons why this thing is actually still good. It's been absolutely juiced to the maximum by Bungie. It has that nostalgic hit to it, so there's no point something coming back and it being undercooked. And to be honest, this thing is still one of the best ones for even high burst DPS or even just, you know, normal DPS over a longer period of time. You want to be looking at getting something like Recombination or Frenzy in that final column, which are both going to boost damage, or you can go for Vorpal. There's Demolitionist, which is going to build into your grenade launcher builds, or even just for getting grenades off back to back. There's tons of questions as to whether you want Spike or Implosion rounds. It, to me, doesn't really make too much of a difference, to be honest. So as you can tell, we've got tons and tons of grenade launcher options that are going to suit basically anybody's playstyle, and that is why I have been leaning towards the wild style grenade launcher. Now some of the footage in this video probably has been showing it absolutely cooking, where I've turned it up to the maximum with the build, but then also some of the footage isn't with any of the artifact mods equipped and just basically just shows the raw power of this grenade launcher. I was super lucky at getting an adept one with stats for all and Incandescent, and Incandescent just is the absolute play on this grenade launcher. If you've got any other role, then you might as well just use Forbearance, to be honest, because Incandescent, you know, it does have that solo subclass synergy, but it also works on its own. You don't even need to be running a solo subclass. Like I say, you don't need any of the solar artifact mods this season. You can still chain explosions, because obviously Incandescent is going to spread scorch to nearby targets when you defeat them, and if you're shooting this double fire grenade launcher trigger into a group of enemies, then you've got potential to scorch tons of targets and start that chain reaction of explosions going around. Now obviously you can absolutely cook with this one, and that is basically the point of this video. So let's go through a quick cook guide on how to make the wild style grenade launcher go absolutely insane. Now like I said, the Hunter is basically one of the best ones to use in terms of grenade launchers, and I think one of the main reasons for this one is because you can get that radiant going and restoration going really easily without too much effort. Obviously you've got the acrobat's dodge, which is going to make you radiant, and then you've got the healing grenade, which is going to offer you that restoration. So we're getting that 25% damage boost from radiant, and then we're also getting the healing effect from restoration, which effectively leans into that soul drinker origin trait that has become so popular on the original Forbearance. Because it is a double fire grenade launcher, then we're going to be hitting tons of targets, and that is why I decided to chuck in the gunpowder gamble. Now defeating targets with solar abilities, solar debuffs or solar weapons will charge up as improvised solar explosive. Now this has recently just been buffed in that it can now offer you 2 fragment slots instead of the measly 1 that it came out with. Because of the nature of the wild style, then you're going to be getting that back to back pretty quickly, and that's also just going to help with the scorch and the ignition damage. But if you really want to turn up the dial on incandescent on any weapon, but more importantly on the wild style, then you're going to want to chuck on the Ember of Ashes so that you're going to apply more stacks of scorch to targets, and then you're also going to want to chuck on the Ember of Char so that when you do create solar ignitions, that's going to spread scorch to nearby targets, and then the potential for chaining further ignitions just absolutely goes through the roof, especially with the combination of artifact mods that we're about to put together. Now the main thing that you really want to use just to keep radiant going and restoration mainly is the Ember of Empyrean, because any solar weapon or ability final blows will keep that duration topped up to the maximum, and it's just going to help you keep alive and keep that outgoing damage boost just absolutely rolling to the maximum. Now if you do for any chance get into any downtime or any sort of issues with getting radiant going, then I've chucked on the Ember of Singeing as well. Obviously we're going to be scorching tons of targets, so you're going to be able to get that class ability back a little bit quicker. Now in terms of what else we're using, then we're going with the proximity explosive knife, and we're going to pair that with the Caliban's hand. Now this thing doesn't get massive usage at the minute. I don't think anybody really is going for it. I think in terms of pairing it with the amount of scorch that we're going to be dishing out, I think chucking a knife into the mix just to help maybe get some explosions going, then it's really going to just help in terms of igniting a ton of enemies. And then if you pair that with the knock 'em down aspect, whilst you're radiant, then final blows with your equipped throwing knife are going to fully recharge that melee energy, so you've got potential for getting them explosive knives back and just, you know, chucking them in there to get that explosions going. Now for the artifact, then you want to set this one up with kindling trigger, flint striker. You want to put torch in there as well, especially if you're in some sort of team play environment. You're going to be dealing more damage to combatants that are maybe affected by strand or stasis debuffs. Heart of the Flame, you can't go wrong with that. If you're going to be casting your Blade Barrage super or whatever, then you're going to get a nice little increase to that super. Revitalizing Blast again is going to work in really nicely with that proximity throwing knife, help weaken champions and bosses for a short duration. In terms of other mods that you may want to chuck in here, then you can maybe put Blast Radius in, which is going to give you armor charge, which you can then lean into getting some solar weapon surges going. And then obviously depending on the activity, whether you want From Whence You Came to get increased ability damage to taken and scorn enemies, or even Wished Into Being to get some bonus orbs of power to get your super back a little bit quicker. There's obviously a few little ones in there in terms of making them a little bit more effective, but Kindling Trigger really is going to turn the dial up on that wild style grenade launcher. And then in terms of other weapons that you maybe want to use, Firefly or Midnight Coup is really nice, and it can actually get Radiant going as well. And then for your heavy weapon, I've gone for the Apex Predator, but I mean, if you've got it, 1000 Voices, just chuck that in there. It's a good time and does an absolute bucket ton of damage on bosses at the minute. In terms of the rest of the mods, we've got Hands On, we've got Ashes to Assets and Solar Siphon, which are going to help give you super energy and create orbs of power. power, and on our legs we've got insulation, which is going to help with that class ability cooldown on collecting orbs of power, and then we've got bomber to again help with your grenade cooldown if we do need to get that restoration from that healing grenade back. And to be fair, that is pretty much it with this build. I know we're going on a little bit of a deep dive into the grenade launchers, but I've been having a ton of fun with a lot of these recently, not just the wild style but the Tusk of the Boar, even Forbearance as much as it pains me, and even Mountaintop. There's just tons of good options, and I just wanted to basically showcase what you can do with them and why maybe you don't need to use Forbearance so much. All in all, I hope you did enjoy this little bit of a god roll grenade launcher video breakdown. Again, we went with a little bit more of a casual style with this video. You've been enjoying them massively recently, and the support on the channel has been absolutely massive and is always greatly appreciated. If you've been here before, consider subscribing or even joining our fellow members to get some bonus goodies to show off in the comments. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one, which you can click right here.